In today's episode, Alexandra asks, in your opinion, is it possible to become an expert and succeed online without personal branding? Of course. You don't need to have a personal brand centered around you. A personal brand is nothing more than a brand, right? So you can have multiple brands, right? Companies do have many, many brands, and not all those are well known. Consider this. How many products and services and companies do you know that have strong brands, are owned by a portfolio company that you've never heard of? Like, here's an example. Have you ever heard of Sun Capital or Golden Gate Capital or Rourke Capital or JB Holding Company or any of these major company names? No, I've never heard of them until I found this graphic. But we sure do know their portfolio pieces, right? You may not know Sun Capital, but you've probably heard of Friendly's or Boston Market or Johnny Rockets. You may not know Rourke Capital, but you know Arby's and Jamba Juice and Auntie Annie's. So this is a really good example of individual brands that are held by a parent brand that you never heard of, right? So do you need a personal brand? No. You can have collectively, sub-brands of things that you work on, projects that could be well known, work that could be well known, and not know the person behind it, right? So, can you build a blog that's really powerful that is not centered around your name and your personality? Yes, absolutely. Can you do the same with a podcast, a YouTube channel? Absolutely. Can you build a product that does really well and nobody has any idea who's behind it? Yep. There are so many video games that we know the name of the game. I couldn't tell you who makes it. I couldn't tell you anything about the person, the creator, the creative team. None of that. So when you're thinking about personal branding, when you're thinking about succeeding online or becoming an expert, you don't need to make it about you. In fact, it's probably better if you don't make it about you and more about the benefit that you bring, whether it's your name or the things that you build. In the end, audiences want benefit to themselves. Audiences want, faster, better, cheaper. They want to be entertained. They want to be educated to some degree. They want to be engaged. Whether that is done through you as a human being or the work that you create is irrelevant to the audience. And it really should be irrelevant to us as marketers. We should just have something that we're focused on. We pick something that we're going to be building, and we build that thing. One of the advantages of not making something a personal brand is that it's actually easier to sell it, right? So if you make a blog, let's call it, the business success blog, right? That's a lot easier to sell to somebody else than, the Christopher S. Penn blog, right? Because the latter is a personal brand that isn't really transferable, right? But the business success blog, you can hand that off to anybody, collect your money and off you go. So when you're thinking about your personal success strategy online, what's the outcome you want, right? Do you want to be well known as a person? If that's the case, if that's the outcome you're after, then no, you can't succeed online without personal branding, because in that case, the success metric is being well known as a personal brand. Is your success metric, I want to sell this property, I want to build this property and flip it like an online realtor? In that case, you don't need a personal brand, and it's better that you don't have one. It's better that you build the thing to succeed and then flip the thing. What goals you have will dictate the path that you choose, and there isn't a right answer. There is no one saying you must have a personal brand. Does it help? Yes. Particularly if you are not in the business of building online properties and selling them off or marketing them. If you are the average person who is looking for something to help their career, that's a case where a personal brand is useful and where a product brand is not. If you want to be known well enough that you can find that next job without having to spend 7 months job searching, then yeah, in those cases, a personal brand helps. And being known for the thing that you want to be hired for. One of the other things I've seen happen is that people will build a personal brand that is not relevant to what they want to get paid to do. And as a result, it's still very hard for them to find a new position, a new partnership, things like that. So one of the things you do have to do when you set out for your overall success strategy as a human being is decide what is it you want to be known for. What is it that you want people to call you about? For myself, if you have questions about data and analytics and marketing and stuff, I want you to call me about those things. I don't want you to call me about my cooking recipes, right? I may post things on Instagram for, like things I've cooked, but that's not what I want to be known for. So I'm not going to devote substantial amounts of online real estate to those things. Even if they may be entertaining, they're not relevant to the core promise of the brand. When we talk about brand, the best definition I've ever heard is from Zay Frank, the entertainer, who said way back in 2006, a brand is the emotional aftertaste of a series of experiences. That's why in his monologue he jokes, that's why you can sell grandma's cookies, but you can't sell old people's cookies, even though they're functionally the same thing. They have a very different emotional aftertaste. So in your building of a brand, what is that emotional aftertaste that someone should have after a series of experiences? That's one of the reasons why people tend to gravitate towards personal brands, because it's easy for them to understand the emotional experience that they want to deliver to somebody, and it's intricately tied to who they are as a human being. But there's absolutely nothing that says that has to be a person, right? Again, think about all those brands. When you hear a brand like Sonic or Red Lobster or Auntie Annie's, does it conjure up some sort of emotional experience? Taco Bell, does that resonate with you in some way? For some people, yes, they're going to have a very strong emotional reaction to that. They may actually start salivating. For other people, it may conjure a very different emotion, like had a bad experience there. But either way, you're invoking an emotion. So if you're taking the product branding approach, again, be clear what the emotional experience is that you want people to have, and what the emotional aftertaste people should be left with. With yourself as a person, what do you want people to feel, and what do you want them to feel when they remember you, right? When they go for recall. Again, if somebody is thinking about a marketing analytics problem, I want them to recall my name. And I want them to recall my company's name, right? There's an example of two parallel brands that are very closely tied together. But if you recall Trust Insights and you don't recall my name, that's fine, and vice versa. Either way, the brands are going to work together. So, yes, you can become an expert and succeed online without personal branding, depending on the approach that you're taking and the outcome that you're looking for. You cannot succeed at without a personal brand if your goal is to have a personal brand. It's just basic logic. But you absolutely can succeed if you want to be the wizard behind the curtain, if you will. If you have follow-up questions on this topic, leave them in the comments below. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and the newsletter. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Want help solving your company's data, analytics, and digital marketing problems? Visit trustinsights.ai today and let us know how we can help you.